Most owners are these creatives that say, I don't like selling. I don't understand marketing. I just want to hire somebody and have them do it. And it leads to failure and failure and failure because they're asking somebody to do something that they don't understand. So to a certain extent, you do have to understand the foundations, the fundamentals.
Okay, as a business owner, you think you have a great product. You are really good at what you do. You have a fantastic product. It's going to solve everybody's problems. But there is just one key problem that you have not addressed. That is, nobody is buying because nobody knows who you are and nobody knows how good you are. It's a common thing. It's a common problem. And it's a common area that we struggle with because we don't know how to deal with this situation. Fortunately, like a lot of problems with business, somebody else has already experienced that, developed a way to overcome it, and have got the wisdom and knowledge and willingness to share it with you on how you can move forward from having just a great product that nobody knows about to a great product that everybody wants to know about. Joining us today is Joel Pilger. Joel is the former founder of Impossible Pictures. So he's had a great product. He's been developing it. He's successfully sold that product. He did that for 20 years. So he's got some great experience in taking that great creative product and actually selling it and making it a business out of it. Best part about this is Joel has now taken all that knowledge and wisdom and training that he's discovered in 20 years of running that creative business. And he is now teaching business owners worldwide how to do that, how to be creative, how to capture those great ideas and turn them into content that people will engage with. I think the best way to answer what Joel does is to ask him himself. So Joel, welcome to the Business Behind Your Business podcast.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me, Paul.
You're welcome. Look, I think there's two aspects of why we've got Joel here today. And the first one is he's not just created a successful business, which we like to share examples of how people have actually made a success from an idea, but you've then taken it to the next level. And I call it the next level is that you've actually taken a great business and you're now showing other people how to run a similar great business.
Yes.
What was the idea behind why you wanted to start a business? Now, I think we're going to go back quite early on in your career.
Sure.
Even probably going back to your teenage years. Did that become?
Yeah. Well, yes, because I actually produced my first feature film when I was 12 years old. This was back in 1979. It was a science fiction film that my best friend and I produced, but we edited and we hired the neighborhood kids to be the actors. And then, of course, rather than just having a movie, we said, let's open a theater. Let's sell tickets. Let's have kids come from miles around to watch our movie. And so I had this realization of, it's really cool to make something, but it's also really cool to make a living. And wouldn't it be fun to do this again and again and again the rest of my life? And this was, again, in a way, the genesis. Fast forward another 10 or 15 years, and I launched a creative studio called Impossible Pictures, where, as you said, my product, was we created animation and special effects and design for commercials and television networks and advertisers and all these kinds of things. And I ran that for 20 years because, frankly, I always thought, wouldn't it be really cool to get paid to make really cool stuff that I would have made that for fun on my own? That was just fun. I loved coming up with ideas, and then people would pay me to go make that thing and bring it to life. And it was a real thrill running that business for those 2 decades.
It sounds like the ultimate dream for a business owner or a creative or I guess even an entrepreneur. So many business owners start their business with a great idea about being able to sell a product or a service that they really enjoy doing.
Yep.
But so many of them don't get past the first year.
Well, yeah. And interestingly, I actually struggled. My business was successful eventually, but I often tell people that the Impossible Pictures that people know is not the real story, because for the first 7 years, okay, so not just one, Paul, the first 7 years, my business struggled to make enough money to pay myself, to have even one employee, barely. And I felt like I was living perpetually beneath my potential. And that was very frustrating. And I almost gave up and burned out, but I started to change and shift some things after 7 years. I hope no one has to endure that long as I did. But yeah, that's a very common story that whether it's a creative business or any other kind of business, that it takes years, and there's often things you don't know that hold you back.
So 7 years of I guess struggle. Okay, still producing great content, great service, but struggling.
Oh, by the way, I had clients like Disney and Universal Studios, okay, that I was working for in those first 7 years. So don't misunderstand. The work product, right, that we were creating was incredible. Like, people thought, Joel, your studio is so cool. You just did that project for Disney. But behind the scenes, it was a struggle.
Okay, so we're going to fast forward a little bit, but I want to go back to when you started as that teenager. One of the questions that I think our listeners are sort of ticking over is, when you created the movie and you opened the theater, did you get the masses of kids turn up to watch the movie that you thought you were going to get?
Okay, I love that question, because the answer is yes. And this is because my best friend and I, his name was Mike, we were good at marketing. And what we did was we opened a theater and we put a sign over the door that all the neighborhood kids could see. But we also created flyers, and we went around and, pinned them on the telephone poles and the grocery store bulletin board, whatever it was, come see this movie. And it worked, right? I think if I remember correctly, we charged 7 cents for a ticket to our movie, and we grossed a little over $13. So I invite anyone to do the math.
I'm guessing the film, the physical film that you used would have cost more than $13 to create a movie back then, hadn't you?
Back then, no, maybe. I think our production budget was probably $10, so I think we did gross a little profit.
Okay, so you were able to successfully get people to view your product, but okay, so many people would say, like, even adjusting for inflation and the time value of money, a $3 profit for all of your efforts, maybe
Sure.
it's not going to pay the bills for a very long time. But
No, of
let's
course.
go forward 7 years, or that first 7 years of running Impossible Pictures. Okay, doing great work, well known for the quality of your work, because you're working with some absolute giants out there. You mentioned that it was still a struggle financially. What was I guess at some point, because you kept going for 20 years, at some point something changed in the way that you ran your business.
Yes. Well, I would first of all qualify what you just said. Well known might be a misnomer.
Okay.
Because we were known, but not well known. And this is one of the things that shifted. In year 7, there were 2 things that I did primarily. And I still look back and think, oh yeah. One was I got really serious about becoming a student of business. Like, what is it that actually makes a business, any business, successful? And you start learning there's these various ingredients, right? There's things like sales and marketing and production and finance and, right, operations, all these things. And once you start learning these, you start realizing, oh, if you suck at any one of these, you're not in business. Like, if you can't sell, you're out of business, right? If you can't produce and make the product, you're out of business. So this was something I started to study. The second thing I did was I started to build and make connections and build a community. So I started hanging out with other business owners. And that combination provided the knowledge, the inspiration, even the path. Like, you meet another business owner who's several years ahead of you, doing what you're trying to do, it is like the world's greatest shortcut. And what you'll find is you can even go talk to your competitors and they'll very likely be happy to talk with you and connect with you. So that combination of learning all these business principles and getting coaching and going through training and investing in that, frankly, and then community was the part two.
Okay. So absolute bonus there. And it's going to save you 7 years, possibly, if you take Joel's advice of understand more about running the business, but also looking at who you're connected with. You can sort of fast track that growth and not have to endure, I guess, the struggle of producing great work, but not being financially, I guess, successful.
Yeah, sustainable, resilient, right? All these things that we have to be, especially in today's world.
Yeah, great. So there's two things there, Joel. You mentioned understanding more about running the business. So we were talking before, and you mentioned some of the principles from Michael Gerber's E-Myth. You learnt a lot of that. My question is, did you personally go and do all of those new skills that you read about in those finance training journals, books?
Okay, great question. I would say yes to a point. The concept goes like this, that I have noticed a pattern now working with hundreds of companies that are like the one that I used to run. And the pattern is this, that as a business owner, as a founder, you can't delegate something that you don't understand. And where this most often shows up is in sales and marketing, because for some reason, especially in the creative industry, most owners are these creatives that say, I don't like selling. I don't understand marketing. I just want to hire somebody and have them do it. And it leads to failure and failure and failure, because they're asking somebody to do something that they don't understand. So to a certain extent, you do have to understand the foundations, the fundamentals of, yes, finances. You better understand bookkeeping, at least to a certain extent. You better, understand how to do invoicing and accounts payable, accounts receivable, all these things, right? You know this. Same thing is true with sales. Same thing is true with marketing. Same thing is true with production. Once you've mastered the basics and you kind of know, what does it actually take to make this area of my business strong and successful? Now you're ready to bring in the partner, the expert, the employee, whatever that resource is, because now you know how to, in a sense, set them up for success. And now you delegate, right? So instead of abdicating, we delegate. And that's just one of my now laws or principles that I teach, is not abdication, delegation. Because if you hire somebody, but you don't understand it yourself, you're just setting yourself up for failure and disappointment.
Yeah, I love that. I think, Joel, we are a bit of kindred spirits here, because the delegation, not abdication, is a phrase that I'm often using when I'm explaining things to other business owners. And I've seen it so many times, and particularly around things like the bookkeeping function or the invoicing function, which the business owner hasn't taken the time to really understand. They've just they use the word delegate. They've given that responsibility to, let's say, the administrator or the secretary, without giving them the training, without explaining what the outcomes are, without giving them the resources, and just said, you go do it. I don't want to know about it. Just give me the results. And it's a failure.
Yeah.
So many times.
Yeah, there's probably some sort of an analogy, like as a parent, you would never just tell your child, good luck, go for it. You're going to come alongside them and you're going to say, hey, look, I have wisdom, I have perspective, I have experience. Now let's figure this out and turn this into a method, right? I'm very big on method, because everything we do in business is some sort of method that's repeatable, that we run as a routine. We create a report so we can both look at the thing and say, is it working? And if that person you've delegated to has the method and they have the routine and there's some sort of a report that you can look at together, now you've delegated, because you're not letting go completely, but you're giving most of it to that person, but you're still in touch. You're still connected to it. You're still holding them accountable.
Yeah. I was just trying to think. I think it might be Dave Ramsey that describes the whole idea of delegation is that you're giving somebody the rope, but you're still holding the other end. You're still involved in the process and still controlling how much. And you either release more rope and give them more responsibility, or you draw them a bit closer, and then until you get that right. So a key thing, I've seen so many business owners get that wrong, particularly when they're trying to grow. And so you've come to that point. I think the other one that you mentioned was connecting with other business owners. Now, I guess there's two pathways there. One is, you mentioned when you first said that, my first thought was going to connecting to business owners who may be a potential client. But then you also mentioned business owners that were in similar industries, similar businesses, and you were learning from them. So how important is that second one, where you're actually learning from other business owners?
It's only important if you want to be successful. I mean, that's how simple I would put it. Is yeah, I let's just say this. When I was running Impossible Pictures, I was struggling to run that business on its own. So I was freelancing on the side. And I got lucky, and I went and did some freelance work for another studio, and I got to work under the hood with this amazingly talented individual who was running a studio that was at the next level of where I was hoping to get to. Well, we worked together off and on for a year, maybe two, and what I learned was priceless. Now fast forward to maybe year 7, and I was based in Denver, Colorado is where my studio was. But in those days I said, wouldn't it be amazing if I could go to New York City, to Los Angeles, and win projects from like top clients there? And I would go on these trips and try and meet people and generate sales. And I did. And that, like we said, that's important. That's one network. That's one community. But when I would go there, I would also reach out to my competitors and say, hey, Mr. David from competing studio, I'm in town. I'd love to meet. Let's grab coffee. And amazingly, these people would say, sure, I have nothing to lose. You seem like a nice person. You're interesting. You're from out of town. Let's meet. Well, if you do that over and over and over again, your network, you get access to so much knowledge, so much information, friendships, shortcuts, connections. I can't even, it's almost laughable for me to think back now. What if I had not taken that path? It's difficult to overstate the impact. And I have a book for people that are interested in this that I read back in the early 2000s, which is Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. And that book radically changed me because it helped me understand this idea we say your network is your net worth. It's like I started to learn that back in the early 2000s. And once I started applying it, changed everything.
So a couple of really key things there. You mentioned approaching your competitors, actually asking them. I think that comes out what we're starting to see a lot more of and a lot more acceptance of is this whole idea of collaboration, not competition. And as a result, what we have is more of an abundance approach, is that, if I help you, then that's going to create more opportunities for both of us. And
Yes.
our whole industry is going to benefit because there are ways that we can improve our product, improve our offering, improve opportunities. But also I might have an opportunity, but I can't take advantage of it, but I want to know it's still being looked after and serviced at a high level. So I'm going to get Joel to come and do that for me, which has created an opportunity for Joel. Yet I'm still looking after my client.
I think there's like a short-term, long-term thinking here. And I would encourage listeners to think of your business as yes, you make short-term bets, but you also have to make long-term bets. And in the short term, the lizard brain will always tell us, "Ooh, if I meet with a competitor, he or she might steal from me, right? They might steal my client. They might get the inside track and get the deal instead of me." And I get it. And sometimes, yes, that is a threat and that sucks. And you have to be smart. But once you start making long-term bets in connection with relationships, and you start to say, "I'm going to help this person, even though they're my competitor, because I think they're going to also come back someday and help me," you really do start to create this community where everyone comes together and they say, "Sure, once in a while we compete." Got it. That's maybe 1% of the equation, because the other 99% is we have so much to gain by helping each other, because it's this rising tide that's going to lift all these boats. And I see this on a daily basis inside the community that I now run, where there's dozens and dozens of founders. We just did a roundtable today, and these are all competitors, but guess what? They don't really compete. As you said, it's more like collaboration and community trump and overrule that little bit of competition that's there.
Yeah. So you just mentioned the community you now, I guess, run, the global community called Forum.
Forum. Yeah.
I want to sort of expand on that a little bit, because you did mention the book Never Eat Alone. There's a temptation for a lot of business owners is that they have to do it alone, and they really, I guess, enforce themselves into a silo where they're not actually talking to anybody, not learning from anybody, not getting supported. How important is that this community for the creative businesses that you're involved with?
It's a lifeline. It's essential. I have one member, Eric, who runs a music and sound design studio in Boulder, Colorado. And he describes it this way. He said, "It's like a board of directors made up of the brightest minds in the industry." So let me just ask anyone who thinks, "Oh, I'm gonna figure it out alone." Like, what is it you really want? Like, do you actually want to be successful and thrive, or do you want to die on this hill called "I did it all myself"? I'm just gonna personally say, for me, I chose the former, not the latter, and it made all the difference, because who doesn't want to have a board of directors of the brightest minds in your industry on your board? I just don't understand this mentality, because I've seen what a difference it makes. So I would take that person and try and shake some sense into them.
I think I'm not going to say it's a new way of thinking, because it's been around for a long time, but I think it's growing in acceptance. And I've often heard it compared to the way we are taught to do things through education, through school, high school, where we're taught not to collaborate, not to share work, not to take somebody else's work and improve it, because that's plagiarism. But in the business sense, working with other people is the way to actually create the best outcomes.
Right. No, I think you're right. And I think there's some sort of a competition thing that happens in school, right? Especially in Western countries, where you're trying to get to the top of the class, right? You want to graduate with honors, and you're trying to beat out that person. And it's a very zero-sum type of mindset that says, "Oh, if you win, I lose. So therefore, I'm not going to concede anything." And once you get out in the business world, I think the further you go along in your career, you start realizing it's not a zero-sum game, right? I can win and you can win, and we're going to both win, because we're going to make something bigger that wasn't there. We're going to literally not just divide up the pie, and if my slice is bigger, yours is smaller. No, we're going to make the pie bigger.
Yeah. No, that's great. So Joel, the community that you're running, a global community, how would people get involved in that? I think you're focusing on creatives, but as an idea, how would that work?
Well, the community that I run, it's again called Forum, and that they can find out about that at my website, which is simply joelpilger.com. You'll see it there. If somebody's running a creative business, my industry is really people that are doing motion or animation or live action production, even music and sound design, experiential. These are all businesses that are creating content for clients in commercial and marketing and advertising and all this sort of stuff. And I would certainly welcome anybody that was curious about that to take a look. But I would say this too, whatever niche, whatever vertical industry you're in, there is a community. And if there's not one, you should go start it. Like, that's how valuable it is. And I think we're seeing this future play out where 5 or 10 years ago, it was the Metas of the world. It was Facebook and it was LinkedIn and all these things. And those networks are great and they're valuable. But these micro networks where there's a high level of trust, because if you're in a community of 100 or 200 people and you know everyone and everyone knows each other, you have a really powerful formula of helping each other, supporting each other, and growing each other's businesses.
Yeah, that's great. So Joel, you've come from the teenage boy filming on 8mm film, entrepreneurial idea, making $3 on your first feature movie, to running a business, but coming beyond that point of struggle and basically unlocking, I guess, freedom through establishing connections with other people in your industry, other business owners. I think the key thing that I've learned is that if you've got a great product or service and nobody's hearing about it, it's because you're not connected. You're not putting yourself out there. You're trying to do everything yourself. Would that be a fair assessment of your journey so far?
It is. I think I would simply say that most every business that I work with very much struggles and wrestles with who are we? How do we get that message out there? How do we become visible? And then, of course, how do we actually engage and connect and convert and turn these random people into relationships, call them customers, call them clients, what have you. And, it's this idea that in the creative world, there's a myth that people believe. And the myth is called the myth of great work, that if we just produce great work, the rest will take care of itself. And the reality is, yeah, you're going to make all this great work and be invisible. And I'm sorry, but nobody cares. Like, if they can't see you, if they can't discover you, if you're not impossible to ignore, then you will be ignored. That's just the unfortunate reality.
Yeah. Look, I think your example there, Joel, is not limited purely to the creatives. I know plenty of trades and service professionals that do great stuff, but nobody knows who they are. And as if nobody knows who you are, well, you might as well not be there. We've got to move on from that. You've shared already so much great wisdom, content, experience, lessons learned today. If there was one key takeaway that you wanted listeners to leave with, one key thing for them to do, what would that be?
I think it would be encouraging everyone to view business as an art. And our future and growth is all about mastering the art of business. Because I think if we apply ourselves and get exposed to all of these different areas, it's not just our product, it's not just our service, it's actually all these other elements that make a business strong and resilient. And I find that's actually a really exciting and interesting journey if you're willing to undertake it. It's like viewing your business as the most interesting project you will ever undertake. I think that's amazing. And for people that go on that journey, they find it very, very satisfying and fulfilling. It's hard, it's messy, it's complicated, but it's rewarding.
Fantastic. Joel, it's been an absolute privilege to have you on the Business Behind Your Business. You shared a lot of your experience, a lot of great wisdom, encouragement, and some real good action points of things that we should be doing in our business. as always, we're going to share the contact details for how to get in contact with Joel in the show notes and on the Business Behind Your Business website, and for you to check out. Please do that. There's a lot that Joel has shared. He's very generous with his time, very generous with what he shared today, and check him out for some further examples of just some of the great stuff he's been doing. Joel, thank you again for sharing with our listeners today.
Great conversation, Paul. Thank you so much.